very, very uh, guyaha, confidential. Shruyatam, please hear. Me, from me. Nripa Atmaja, O son of the king. Yam, which, Saptaratram, 7 nights. Prapatan, chanting. Puman, a person. Pashyati, can see. Ke charan, human beings who travel in space. Translation in purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Son of the King, now I shall speak unto you the mantra, which is to be chanted with this process of meditation. One who carefully chants this mantra for 7 nights can see the perfect human beings flying in the sky. Report. Within this universe, there is a planet called Siddhaloka. The inhabitants of Siddhaloka are by nature perfect in the yoga achievements, which are of 8 varieties. One can become smaller than the smallest, lighter than the lightest, or bigger than the biggest. One can immediately get whatever he likes. One can even create a planet, etc. These are some of the yogic perfections. By virtue of the lagima siddhi, or purificatory process to become lighter than the lightest, the inhabitants of Siddhaloka can fly in the sky without airplanes or airships. It is hinted herein by Narada Muni to Dhruva Maharaj that by meditating upon the transcendental form of the Lord and at the same time chanting the mantra, one becomes so perfect within 7 days that he can see the human beings who fly in the sky. Narada Muni uses the word japa, which indicates that the mantra to be chanted is very confidential. One may ask, quote, if it is confidential, why is it mentioned in the writing of Śrimad Bhāgavatam? It is confidential in this sense. One may receive a published mantra anywhere, but unless it is accepted through the chain of disciplic succession, the mantra does not act. It is said by authoritative sources that any mantra chanted without having been received from the disciplic succession has no efficacy. Another point established in this verse is that meditation should be carried on with the chanting of a mantra. Chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the easiest process of meditation in this age. As soon as one chants the Hare Krishna mantra, he sees the forms of Krishna, Rama, and their energies, and that is the perfect stage of trance. One should not artificially try to see the form of the Lord while chanting Hare Krishna, but when the chanting is performed offenselessly, the Lord will automatically reveal himself to the view of the chanter. Therefore, the chanter has to concentrate on hearing the vibration. And without extra endeavor on his part, the Lord will automatically appear. Om Agina Timrandasya Gnanjana Shlakaya Chakshu Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve hukam karo. Hare Krishna. Well, if I were to do what I did before and ask you for questions on this purport, then I may not get to all my questions. Because when I read this purport, I had lots of questions. Some things in this purport are a little more obvious, not so difficult to understand, but many other things I found quite challenging, in fact. So the easy stuff in the beginning, in the beginning of the purport, we have a very nice description of what confidential means in the connection with this mantra. We have here Prabhupada relating the word. Well, let me step back a second because the purport begins with yoga cities. It begins with sound. How can we do this so that the sound check is done anyhow? It shouldn't require that. It begins with describing yogic cities. Now, this raises the first question about, how do yogic cities actually work? But in this particular instance, and how does one attain them? That's always been a mystery to me. But in this particular verse, it simply describes a planet in which the residents, who are described as human beings, and this answers one question that comes to me many, many times. I don't know if it has to you, but we read that there are 400,000 species of humans. And one explanation, because we look around and we don't quite know, we only think that there's one species. Of course, according to anthropology or whatever, there is a evolution. There's the Homo Neanderthal and the Homo this and that, and now Homo sapiens. So those could be described as different species. Prabhupada sometimes describes as civilized and uncivilized, but 400,000 is quite a lot. So that brings us to perhaps think that there are many different species of life on different planets. And this one, the Siddhaloka, is one particular species, which are the Siddhas who live on that planet, and their nature, their quality, what distinguishes them from other species of human being is that they have power. They have superpowers. They're born with these superpowers. They don't have to practice yoga in order to attain them. They have them by birth, and they're quite extraordinary. And they appear to, one of them is to be able to fly in the sky. And this verse says that they're flying out there. Basically we can understand from this verse that these beings are flying in the sky, and we don't see them. Because one of the results of this meditation described by Narada is that you can then see these beings. So that tells us that they are there, but we don't see them. So these are some interesting initial thoughts. But then we start to get into the more challenging questions that I have when I read this verse. So the first challenge is that Narada is describing a process of meditation. First, in Prabhupada's purport, he first describes that one should meditate. Let me just read it here. He says, "It is here hinted herein by Narada Muni to Dhruva Maharaj that by meditating upon the transcendental form of the Lord and at the same time chanting the mantra." Okay, but then later in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says we should chant the mantra, but not try to visualize the form of the Lord. That form will come automatically. So this is my first question. Well, here, first it says, you should meditate on the form of the Lord while chanting, and later it says, chant and the form will come. So then my resolution of this question has been, and others can give their own resolution, that it's just a reversal of the process. That Prabhupada is saying, begin with chanting, the meditation on the form will come. And this sentence says, while meditating and chanting, so it's just a matter of sequence. Archita. Give him a microphone. That could also be. This is
first instruction is to Dhruva, and this was during Satya Yuga. He has a different mentality than we do. Yeah. So he was given the description of the Lord first, then he was given the mantra, and then Narad said, put them together. While you're meditating on that description that I gave you, chant this mantra, and you will become perfect in 7 days. Yeah. In our case, we are not going to get perfection in 7 days, no matter how hard we try, because we're starting from a different starting point. We're Kali Yuga dregs. So Prabhupada is saying, just take the mantra, try to chant it sincerely, and the form will come to you when you become more practiced.
And in support of that, the other result is also very interesting. One becomes so, if you do this, because if you are Dhruva, and you're in Satya Yuga, and you can meditate in this way, then it takes only 7 days. Now, of course, those are 7 days of constant chanting and meditation. This is not like, we chant for a couple of hours, or actually, if we really analyze, we properly chant for maybe 2 minutes a day. At least I can speak for myself. But here, Dhruva was at such a level of determination that he was able to focus, bring himself completely into this meditation, and therefore the result came very quickly. So that's the first area of question that I had. So then the next is about confidentiality. That if the mantra is confidential, then how is it and why is it being described in Bhāgavatam publicly? And Srila Prabhupada gives this very interesting explanation that the simply reading the mantra or hearing the mantra does not give you the full power of the mantra. Now this raises many questions. We do know, we hear from Haridas Thakur, that there is Nama Abhas, wherein even without any form of initiation, there's no connection, so to speak, just accidentally, one repeats Krishna's name, it will have some effect. So there seems to be, in this respect, two channels that we're speaking about. Now, often Prabhupada uses this statement, and someone, mantras vijay vihinas, who knows the full Sanskrit? Sampradaya vihina. Nishpala. But there's no fruit if the mantra comes outside of sampradaya. Now, Srila Prabhupada often, or at least a few times, uses this verse to talk about made-up mantras. And those of you who have spent any time in India, you are probably familiar with a number of them. Prabhu, I think you live in Vrindavan. It used to be, I don't think it's not as loud anymore, but there used to be, there's a 24-hour kirtan. Before we began our 24-hour kirtan, there was a 24-hour bhajan kirtan of followers of, I can't even remember the name of this guru, who have a sort of made-up mantra, which I won't repeat because it's useless. I will repeat, though, what Srila Prabhupada did, because this was, nowadays, you don't hear it much, I think. On the corner next to, behind the Krishna Balaram guest house, there's a little place. They used to broadcast their mantra. Nitai. Yeah. Do you hear it? So Prabhupada, he took that and he said, okay, Nitai Gaur, Radhe Shyam, Jai Krishna Balaram. So is that but he didn't introduce that as a mantra. He just said, that's a nice way to glorify the deities. But in their group, they take this mantra as their mantra. I even came across one so-called guru. Yes. You need some instructions? All right. And while you're getting the mic, so he called he described as, I looked and he said, here's the Maha Mantra, but his Maha Mantra was Om Namo Shivaya. So people in various, situations make up things. Yes, Narada.
I remember the mantra sounded similar to that, but I think the one that you just chanted, actually, Prabhupada told devotees they could chant that.
What's that?
So the mantra that's Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Jai Krishna Balaram. Actually, Prabhupada said something along the lines that can actually also be chanted. So I think those guys were chanting a different mantra. But the one that
what they chant is a different. I think it's Anukul Chandra or someone.
It's a different mantra.
It's different.
They were chanting that was made up.
Anyway, I won't get into what they chant, but the point is that Prabhupada often speaks of this because he's talking about mantras that are made up. But it doesn't only apply to made up mantras. It also applies to Vedic mantras that may be published. And Prabhupada, even our Gayatris are the ones that we receive in our Diksha. Those, Prabhupada has repeated them in a number of places, at least some of them. I don't know if all of them, but they are printed in his books. So can you read them and take them and now you're initiated? You have the mantras? No. There has to be a transmission, a bona fide authorized system of transmission for these mantras to be effective. Then comes the question, though, of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is distributed widely. All of us, we accepted the chanting of Hare Krishna, and it's had some effect without initiation. But how have we received it? Have we actually received it independently of Sampradaya? I first came into contact with the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in my aborted college days. I never completed college, but I did attend for a little while. And one young man, all of you I assume have read the Prabhupada Lilamrita. Raise your hand if you have not read Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Okay, make it a challenge to yourself to read the Lilamrita in the next year. And if you remember, I remember because I was connected with it, but there's a instance where Gargamuni acquires a dictaphone for Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada starts to dictate. And then now they have to be transcribed, and the devotees in the temple don't know typing very well. And all of a sudden, one person shows up whose name I think it was Brian. I'm not sure. Anyway, he shows up, and he's from the college that I went to, Antioch College, and he says, "I'm here. I have to do something for my college work. Can you engage me?" And said, "Well, what do you know what to do?" "Well, I know how to type. I'm a fast typist." "Have you ever transcribe. Yes, I do that too. And it was Krishna's arrangement. He did that for several months, and he returned to my college. And he started Sunday feasts. And that was my first exposure to chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So he learned the chanting from, actually I shouldn't say that. That was not my first exposure. It was the first one that actually had some effect on me. But my first exposure was Allen Ginsberg. Now Allen Ginsberg did not first hear the Hare Krishna Mahamantra from Srila Prabhupada. He went to India and he just picked it up. And then he came to America and he started, having his poetry recitals. And I was there at the University of Rochester, and he took out his harmonium and droned a note and started chanting. And to me it was just, it didn't go into my heart. But when it really had the most effect, and maybe other of you could describe this, was when I heard the mantra from a devotee in the Toronto temple, and they said, chant this, try this chanting. Every other time was sort of, kind of picked up casually in some other context. But when I got it from, and heard it from a devotee asking me to chant, and I went and I chanted specifically, then I got a real effect. And that led me to start to surrender. I shouldn't say that I surrendered, but I began the process of surrendering by moving into the ashram. So I think all of us perhaps have seen that when we've come to the point where we've heard the mantra, we've learned it from a devotee, and we've taken it in that spirit, it starts to really work. If we chant, casually, we heard it on the radio or whatever, it may have some effect. Or even if Haridas Thakur describes that you repeat the Lord's name without even knowing it, it will have some effect. But the real effect begins when we get it through sampradaya. Now that, in the case of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the effect begins when we receive it from a devotee. And Prabhupada says we should be careful to receive from a pure devotee. Now, in this context, a devotee who is repeating the mantra as he's heard it and as he understood it from Srila Prabhupada, I would suggest that is the same channel. That's the same effect. But on the other hand, he says, milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. If you start hearing Allen Ginsberg is kind of in a different category. I don't know what you could call him, because he became very friendly and Prabhupada loved him. Prabhupada really loved him. But there are those in India who will teach you chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, but with a complete impersonal conception. Or what to speak of, even worse than that perhaps, is a conception of how it can improve your sensual enjoyment, as we find in some groups. So this was a point that I thought was very important. Now, the next challenging question that I had was Srila Prabhupada's description of the effect of chanting. This happens very often in Prabhupada's purports. He says, as soon, okay, listen carefully, as soon as one chants the Hare Krishna mantra, he sees the forms of Krishna, Rama, and their energies, and that is the perfect stage of trance. So, that's not happened to me. I have chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but I've not reached a perfect stage of trance. So is this an exaggeration? It's not. It seems to be, for me at least. It's not an exaggeration. Why is it not an exaggeration?
There's, the Mahamantra means Shuddhanam. So actually chanting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur Prabhupada says that, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, I think I have it here somewhere. This is a Prabhupada quote. I'll just say the whole quote from Srila Prabhupada. Of course, one can simply chant the holy name, but it would be much better to understand how to do it properly. Anyone can chant, but you need to know. If a person chants correctly, his chanting will be more effective. There are such words of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Namakshara bahir oi, nama nahi oi. Just a combination of sounds is not yet nam. The mouth can produce nam akshara, the sounds Hare Krishna, but this is not yet a holy name. This is from Srila Prabhupada in his conversation in 1977.
So this is very good, thank you. So the first thing is, when Srila Prabhupada says, as soon as one chants the holy name, is he referring to our imperfect chanting or the perfect chanting? It seems that a very good explanation or a way to understand this sentence is to consider it in that light, that what is being spoken of here is that as soon as one chants the Hare Krishna mantra, that as soon as one chants the Hare Krishna mantra purely, then. Now, there is another explanation, and that is, I was trying to find it, perhaps one of you remembers, in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada describes how we can see some of these apparently exaggerated results. And he describes that it's not exaggeration because it does happen. It doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, but it does happen. So that's one other way to see it. But I think your explanation is for us the most important, because Prabhupada follows on by saying, one should not artificially try to see the form of the Lord while chanting Hare Krishna, but when the chanting is performed offenselessly, the Lord will automatically reveal himself to the view of the chanter. Therefore, the chanter has to concentrate on hearing the vibration, and without extra endeavor on his part, the Lord will automatically appear. So this challenge that we have, how can we chant offenselessly? To me, what I've been attempting for now so many years is to try to go deeper into what are these offenses? What do I do? Obviously, to me, it's always the conclusion has always been, I'm not getting that. I'm not experiencing this full. I'm not seeing Krishna when I chant. That's not happening to me. So why not? And the answer always comes back, because you're making some offense. You're making some offense. And say, well, okay, there's 10 offenses. Well, actually, there's 11. That's an interesting thing, How the one offense that seems to be my biggest problem is contained in this little one word, pramada, api pramada. Just kind of hidden in. That's been a mystery to me, But then I thought, well, actually, this for me, I've analyzed often that the 10th offense, that's really for me, because what does it say? Prabhupada translates it very interesting, to not have complete faith. Padma Purana says, Shrutopi, Namam Hatmya Shrutopi, Priti Rahito Nara. aham mama, yeah, aham mameti, right? It's this sense of I and mine, which Prabhupada translates as maintain material attachment. How do you maintain material attachment? By identifying aham mameti with me and mine. And I think that's the root for me. It's so hard. I'm so conditioned to be looking at everything from the perspective of me and my, not necessarily my, that I own it, right? I mean, that would be kind of ridiculous, that I own everything. But that it's there for me, that the world is there for me, and I have to just kind of adjust that world so that it satisfies me. So I start to make various. It's all, thank God. I mean, that's right. There's even you can be a believer, have faith in God, and still see the world as meant for you. Every little thing. And when it doesn't work out, then I have to make some adjustment. I have to change the way I'm living or whatever. So that deep-rooted consciousness of aham mameti, that gives rise to inattention. When we sit down to chant, then what draws us out of hearing the mantra? Something to do with something with what I'm thinking about, what's something to do with myself in the center. Putting myself in the center. So this is our challenge. How do we overcome these offenses? And there's only one solution. We go on chanting. And we go on recognizing it. We can take great solace in Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Instruction. And I haven't memorized. It's the 7th verse where he describes. You have it memorized? You have the mic? No, you don't. I mean, I know basically what it says. He says, how wonderful it is! How wonderful it is! You know, okay. Jaundice, yes. You have a mic to put in the mic. Yeah.
The basis of what he's saying is that Syat Krishna Nami Charitari Sitapya Vidya. So there's a sickness of ignorance, which is considered jaundice. Syat Krishna Nama Charitari Sitapya Vidya. Pito Patasya Rasanasya Pito Patapta Rasanasya Narochikanu. He's saying that. Pito Patapta, something among those lines. It's a sickness of pitta, which is jaundice.
Yes.
And that's cured by the sweet candy of what's so amazing, the Rochikanu, that's so amazing, is that simply by doing this, chanting and taking this consistently, everything naturally gets taken out and taken away, and one actually develops pure taste for the holy names.
Yeah.
Rupa Goswami is saying, this is wonderful.
Wonderful.
How wonderful.
Anyone here speaks German? What's that?
Yeah. He's saying that if you go on chanting, not only is the ignorance removed, but it's done at the root, mula hantri. The root is taken out. So how is that root taken out? You have to desire it.
Yeah, the root of our desire.
You're mentioning it in trying to get rid of the 10 offenses. You have to want to get rid of them. If you don't want to get rid of them, then they're just not going to go away on their own.
Yeah, there's a wonderful story that our godbrother Kishore tells, Beautiful story. You may have heard it. He relates. He was in Soho Street, and Srila Prabhupada was speaking. And at the end, he asked for questions. And one lady, she kind of, I don't know if she stood up. I can't remember exactly, but she was like, "Swami, can you see God?" Kind of challenging. And Prabhupada says, "Yes, you cannot. God is everywhere. You cannot see? Why can you not see?" And as he's saying this lady is sort of shrinking. And then he says, "Do you want to see God?" And finally it sinks in. She can't see because she doesn't really want. She doesn't have that core inner desire. We don't hear, we don't connect with Krishna and His name because to do so fully means full surrender. Means giving up all, 100%, every shred of ego. That's frightening to one like me, conditioned by anahati karma, to identify as the center. Yes, I can know I'm not my body. I can know I'm not my mind. But to know or to actually fully accept that I am nothing but a spark of Krishna. To accept that I am infinitesimal, I am powerless without His power. That's not easy. We're so conditioned to believe in our power. Yes, I may not be able to do this, but at least I have that, I've got something. And we see this all over through the world, that people hold on, even if it's the shred, the smallest bit of power that they feel they have in their lives, they hold on to that. Even they're in a jail, and they're imprisoned, and and they hold on, okay, at least I can do this. Just to feel I'm not powerless. To give that up, to say, I am actually powerless. I am nothing but a spark of Krishna and His servant. To really come to that takes constant beating, beating of the mind with shoes and brooms and so on whenever it pops up, and say, no. And that's what we do. We sit down every day, we chant, and the ego comes up and we have to push it aside again and again. And by practice, gradually. So for some it is very quick. Therefore, to say that, in 7 days or at once or as soon as, this can happen, but may not happen. But if it doesn't, then don't. At least I take great solace in also Srila Prabhupada's explanation of utsaha nishchaya dharyat, being patient and confident at the same time. The confidence that can be, the patience is born out of confidence. We can be confident that if we keep on chewing the sugar cane, although it's bitter right now, we will eventually be cured. And that sweet holy name will be sweeter than any sweetness we can think of. All right. Thank you everyone for listening and contributing. And thank you especially for helping out with the packaging. If you know anyone who's wants to do a little voluntary service, we want to try to get these all done in the next few days. And we thank you very much. Anyone have some more comments or questions they'd like to? Yes, Narad.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. First of all, I'm just thanking Krishna for having you come back here. It's always so nice hearing you giving the Bhāgavatam class, and especially today talking about such an important topic. This process of chanting purely is really important for us, and especially for me to remember that that's actually what's going to bring pleasure to Srila Prabhupada, not just Namakshara. So thank you for that. I was
Hare Krishna.
About something I heard that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur discusses in the second defense, and he adds something to the second defense, and he discusses that not just considering the names of demigods to be non-different from Vishnu, but actually to be considering Nam and Nami to be different from each other. So I found that really profound, that also this understanding of not realizing that Krishna is non-different from his names is also an offense.
Yes.
That we actually cultivate knowledge of Krishna.
Yes.
I was just thinking to add that.
Yeah, thank you. We don't have time here, but it's a project that I have been meditating on, and I'd like to try to, get some devotees together to work on it. I really think we could do a lot more to dive deeper into these offenses and understand them, because there's some, we read them, we hear them, but we don't necessarily, go deeply into them. We think, well, Guru Avagya, well, I'm following, I'm doing, but, maybe there's something there. Or, the offending Vaishnava, the devotees. Okay, well, I'm not doing that, but maybe there's something you are doing. Or, Harinama Kalpanam, maybe but maybe you are thinking a little bit, this is imagination. Or, so looking at each very minutely to see where is it, because that must be it. There's no other explanation. The name is pure. It's the clouds of offense that are standing between us and that name. It's not that the name is become offensive. It's our offensive nature that's standing between us and experiencing the pure holy name. So anytime when tears are not, although I should say, there's one more thing I should say, that it's not because sometimes tears flowing from the eyes, but Srila Prabhupada, we didn't see him always, from tears flowing from. And it's explained, I think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also explains it, that the advanced devotees sometimes, they hold this outward manifestation. And Prabhupada makes a big point, is that you can look at somebody. In India, this is interesting, because you can find people that tears are flowing from their eyes. They're crying and rolling on the ground and so on and so forth. And then Prabhupada says, and then the next minute they go off to the corner and they're smoking beedis. He says, the real evidence is how you're acting. How are you acting? Shrutakirti gives a really nice story about related to this. Some of you may have heard. So Shrutakirti talks about this because he was Prabhupada's servant, and he describes how with traveling with Srila Prabhupada, it was like every day was Janmashtami. It was like wherever Prabhupada would arrive, there's a huge festival and the devotees are chanting and everything is just completely ecstatic, and the devotees are crying and just, Jai Prabhupada, and you can see the emotion they're feeling And Shrutakirti is observing himself and saying, I'm not feeling that. And one day, during Prabhupada's massage, he asked Srila Prabhupada, I'm seeing all your disciples, when you arrive, they're so filled with emotion. They're so filled with love for you, and I don't feel like that. I don't know. Prabhupada didn't say anything. He just kept quiet. And Shrutakirti, he explains that he knew that, he didn't press it. He just said it. And Prabhupada went for his bath and had his lunch. Shrutakirti went and prepared his lunch. And then, a little later, Srila Prabhupada asked him, so, do you like what you're doing? And Shrutakirti said, yes, I love what I'm doing, how I'm serving you. He said, that is love. That is love. Not necessarily the outward emotion, the expressing of the tears and so on. What you're doing. What you're doing. So that's how we can really, really understand Srila Prabhupada's love for Krishna. Not because he shivered or tears. There were times when he went into a little, but it's what he was doing. How he was acting. That's how we see the love. And we can aspire to achieve that love by acting as he did. And going deep inside ourselves and seeing where am I not surrendering? Prabhupada often says, full surrender. Where is it? What am I holding back? What am I keeping in terms of self-identity and material desire? Hare Krishna. Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai. Oh, we have a comment, question? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. When you quoted the last or the 10th offense, and which is Shrutepi Nama Mahatmya Yapriti Rahito Nara Ityadi. And then I think the one thing that I always try to think about is the offense is us not having any feeling for the name. And so I was thinking, what is the way in which we get feeling for the name? And I think some time ago I caught on to this from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he mentions in his commentary for Nashtapraya Shvabhadreshu, where he says, just by hearing Krishna Katha, our offenses, from a pure devotee, our offenses slacken. And that ends up being the famous book Bhāgavata, Bhāgavata purport by Prabhupada, where he says it's so potent just to hear from devotees realize what he's talking about, because it'll cut through everything. So I've been trying to make that an effort, because maybe somehow, some way we can, at least I can get something from hearing.
Thank you. I couldn't quite understand what you said, but I think it was wonderful. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.